The world's biggest serial killer might never get caught if he knows how to use a computer. Imagine a guy who's not only friends with his victims, but also a well-known name in the city, and on top of that, a doctor. This is the shocking story of Dr. Harold Shipman, who used his clinic not to save lives, but to take them. In a small town in England called Hyde, with only 30 residents, he carried on his killing spree for 23 years, putting more than 250 people to death right under everyone's noses. Even after putting people to sleep, no one suspected Dr. Harold Shipman, and maybe they never would have if he hadn't made a small mistake. What was the reason behind all those deaths, and why was he able to avoid capture for so long? What clue did the police find that exposed years of murders in an instant? Welcome back to another episode on Mr. Amazed TV. Dr. Harold Shipman mainly targeted patients who lived alone and were quite elderly, people whose deaths wouldn't raise any eyebrows. He spends a lot of time visiting their homes, listening to their worries, and making them feel like even though they're alone, Dr. Harold Shipman is there to hear them out. Some patients trust him so much that they've even given him their house keys. People think Dr. Harold Shipman just treats old folks through medicine, but behind the scenes, he figures out who feels lonely and how much wealth people have. How much property does the family have? Who all comes over, and where do the relatives live? Dr. Shipman would ease his mind by giving his patients an overdose of medicine to kill them. Since these patients were usually over 80, no one suspected anything when they died. This went on for years without anyone even thinking something was off, until he made a mistake himself. Dr. Shipman started his career in a town called Pontefract, about 70 kilometers from Hyde, where he worked at a hospital. Then, in 1974, he left Fract and went to work as a general practitioner at the Abraham and Marod Medical Center. During his job, he started prescribing a lot of patients a medication called pathine, which is actually a painkiller, but pretty addictive. Dr. Shipman had a habit of abusing pathine and would intentionally prescribe it to his patients, even when they didn't really need it. The result was that patients felt really good after taking this medication, not realizing they were getting hooked on it. That's what was going on. After getting caught, the hospital administration fired Dr. Shipman, and things escalated to the point where his license was about to be revoked. However, the management managed to save his license. After spending a bit of time in rehab, once everyone forgot about him, he resurfaced in 1977 and got a job as a general practitioner at Donnybrook Medical Center. He continued practicing in that GP position through 1980, and during that time, he neither gave up his drug habit nor stopped finding opportunities to take advantage of elderly patients. The murder rate really shot up since 1993 when he opened his own clinic in Hyde and built a solid reputation in the city. For the next several years, things carried on like that, and nobody suspected the doctor of anything shady. It wasn't until March 1998 that Dr. Linda Reynolds, who worked at another hospital called Brooks Surgery right across from Shipman's clinic, raised concerns about the unusually high death rate among patients being sent from there. She pointed out that in just the last 3 months, Shipman, who runs just a small clinic, had 16 patients die. While there have been deaths during this period, Dr. Brooks' clinic, which has 3 times as many patients as Shipmate's, only saw 14 deaths. The suspicion grew when it was revealed that all 16 patients from Shipmate were cremated instead of being buried. It's worth noting that most Christians bury their loved ones after they pass away, with only a few choosing cremation. Dr. Linda expressed her concerns in a report to the Manchester coroner detailing all these findings. It was also mentioned that most of Dr. Shipman's 16 patients were elderly women who were found dead in their homes. It can't just be a coincidence that most of these patients died while under Dr. Ship management's care. The strange part is that Dr. Shipman's patients were found dead in their nice clothes, sitting in chairs. Plus, either Dr. Shipman was already at their home or it was his first visit, and he found the patient dead, which is really unusual. Based on this report, an investigation was launched. But the police didn't find any solid evidence against Dr. Shipman, and after a month, they closed the investigation. Whenever Dr. Harold had patients who died during shipments, he would just sign Form B himself. Form B is the one that the treating doctor has to sign, where they write down the cause of death. Because of this process, many deaths went uninvestigated, which is how Shipman managed to cover up his killings so easily. After the investigation stopped, Shipman went on to take the lives of 3 more people, but it wasn't long before he would get caught. His last victim was 81-year-old Kathleen, the former mayor of Hyde, who died in her home on June 24th, 1998. And once again, Dr. Shipman was the last person to see Kathleen alive. He later signed her death certificate. Angela Woodruff, Kathleen's daughter and a lawyer herself, got suspicious about her mom's suspicious death when she found a will where her mom left her house to Dr. Shipman. Dr. Shipman was pretty close to the family, but that alone didn't raise any red flags for Angela. What really got her questioning was that her mom had 2 houses, yet the will only mentioned 1. This made it clear that the will was probably written by someone who didn't know about the other house. The Dr. Shipman was the one involved. Angela Woodruff went to the police, who reopened the investigation. Kathleen Grundy's body was exhumed and sent for an autopsy. They found a significant amount of diacetylmorphine, which is heroin, in her system. When the police asked Dr. Shipman about it, he claimed that Grundy was a heroin user and that he had noted this in her records before treating her. Dr. Shipman had recently started entering data into computerized medical journals, but he didn't realize that in that entry they had put a date before the death, but the last edit date of that file gets saved automatically on the computer. When the police checked the entries on that computer, they found out that it wasn't enough to just arrest the ship management. They also discovered the typewriter that was used to write the fake will. It became clear because some characters on Shipman's typewriter were damaged, and the same characters were missing in Grundy's will. On September 7th, 1998, the police arrested the well-known doctor Harold Shipman from Hyde. When this came to light, the families of the victims that the shipman had killed also stepped forward. They had their suspicions, but they couldn't speak up in front of the well-known doctor in town. The police investigated 15 other patients who had died at the hands of the shipman not long ago. A specific pattern emerged in all these cases. The patients were given a lethal dose of diamorphine. The shipman would sign their death certificates himself and write old age as the cause of death. He also advised cremation, so that all the evidence would be destroyed after burning. The court sentenced him to death, and he hanged himself using a bedsheet in his cell. After his death, a fellow inmate was shocked to reveal that he had actually killed 508 people, not 260, and this was something the shipman himself had told. However, the real reason behind all those murders hasn't come to light yet. Some people call him a psycho, others think it was just a way to make money, and some believe it might be related to his mother's death. His mum, who was a cancer patient, was given morphine as a painkiller. Experts believe that maybe Shipman wanted to see his patients die in the same way with morphine. I hope you all will like and share this video. Thank you so much for your loving comments.